the YouTube supporters. Um, we had a very wonderful showing with YouTube. So thank you to all those that viewed the video. Thank you to all those that made comments. Uh, Thank you to our family and friends, those that know us. For those that don't know us, that's getting an opportunity to know us. Thank you all for the support and the love. Thank you all for the constructive criticism for those that on our YouTube family that is now connecting with us. You know, you just have to be grateful for people being able to express themselves because for too long we have been silent. So we want to continue to make sure that people are, you know, able to express themselves, that people are doing what they need to do as it relates to their expression. So we're excited about that. So again, thank you to my YouTube and to our YouTube supporters. Let me just I want to do this just for the sake of our audience. When we're talking about religion, or we're talking about Christianity, whatever facet of, you know, spirituality, whatever the area is, I think it's important to give just, and I want to do this for those that come in it as it relates to, so they can get to know who I am, and to know my credentials as well. Okay, so I hold 3 degrees. One of my degrees is in divinity. I taught at Beeson Divinity School, which is right here in the great state of Alabama. It's the extension of Sanford University, taught at the Montgomery location for 2 years. I have a special concentration in Greek and Hebrew, specifically Paleo Hebrew, which would be considered ancient Hebrew. I speak African Swahili languages fluently. Also study the Bantu language and speak Bantu. And I can go on as far as credentials. Not only did I teach at Beeson, I've pastored 2 churches with a tenure of over 15 years. One church was the pastor and founder. Have worked with various ministries of all denominations, have been on a World Missions Society board to help as it relates to organizing, structuring, and not only that, creating a missionary curriculum so that when missionaries went out to evangelize, that they would have a basic curriculum that they could follow that would be teachable to whatever group of people they were ministering to. Have worked with also various ministries within the Montgomery sector, both black and white. Have organized and put ministries in place for black and white ministries alike. Also, I was a national lecturer for African American history, as well as ancient African spirituality, which is also a concentration of study for me. As far as a professional, I hold a bachelor's and a master's in business administration. I am an alumni of the McKinsey Academy, which is the Black Leadership Executive Management Academy, which is international. I hold a advanced data certification through Northwestern University. And so those are just some of the credentials. And I am an applicant doctoral student right now. So that means in the process of applying for a doctoral program. So, and I just wanted to share that so that the audience know, I'm not dealing with this from a standpoint of a novice. This is not an opinionated thing. Uh, I've put a lot of research and time. I've lectured with some of the greatest uh, black minds and theologians in the United States. I'm not one to toot my own horn, but I did feel it necessary to just share so that people understand that when we talk about, and specifically myself, when I deal, whatever subject I deal with, I've studied it years. It's
Yes.
not just something that's coming off the top of my head or my opinion. I've got facts, I've got books, I've got a lot of research where I can actually, disseminate to people.
And I
to
think
share
it's
with people.
important for people to know that, Brian, because sometimes information can get misconstrued. And it's important that people know that you have the facts and that you give the truth. And that's very important. Like I say, he is my keeper. He keeps me grounded and focused. And my area of expertise is not his area of expertise. I'm
That's right.
basically just the partner, just sitting on the podcast with him, asking questions. And as we go, I'm learning just as everybody else is.
Yeah. So let's deal with, and I guess let's get into the subject of, why are our people,
Okay.
continuing to leave the church? So let's just talk about the black church, okay? Let me say this to those that don't define the church by color. When God created humanity, he did not make a mistake. He created ethnicities for a reason. In Revelations chapter 7, you see every ethnicity represented in the Bible. In Acts chapter 2, at the formation of what we call the church, you see every ethnicity, every tongue, every persuasion there at the formation of the church. In Genesis, at the Tower of Babel, you see the same formation. You see every tongue, you see every ethnicity. Why am I saying that? Because anytime we decolorize or make something that God did insignificant, there's a problem. And most of the time, it is because we have been so conditioned with Western thinking as it relates to our theology that we have been made to believe that that is a form of racism when we start to identify ourselves as it relates to ethnicity in the Bible. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is that in the early formation of the church in America, when you look at the African American church, one thing that we'll see, there was a period in the late 1800s to the late 1700s, to early 1800s, called the Great Awakening, where missionaries were sent to slaves, and basically their main job was to convince the slave that they were to be obedient unto their slave masters. That was their main job, and I'm just giving you that in summary. So in process of that, okay, they were also, one of the things that they did in conjunction with helping the slave, or programming the slave, I should say, because it wasn't helping the slave, but programming the slave to believe that obedience was better than sacrifice as it related to their slave master, regardless of the treatment. Another thing that they did was program the slave to not see a certain persuasion as relates to the slave master treating them a certain way. Okay, so part of that programming, there is a white missionary by the name of Charles Colfax Jones. Everybody get his little manual. He goes into Georgia in the 1800s. His job was to condition slaves based on Christian doctrine to be obedient and subservient to their masters and to not leave the plantation, but to accept that they were inferior based on the Bible and based on what Scripture taught, that they were in a place relating to their servitude that was sanctioned by the Scriptures and sanctioned by God, that this was how it should be. So he points to things such as the Hamitic curse, which we'll have to do a whole lecture on that. I did a whole lecture on the false interpretation of the Hamitic curse as it relates to black people. But that was taught on plantations to slaves, that they were to be subservient to their white slave masters, and part of this was their curse, which in the Bible was highlighted through their descendant who was Ham, or through their ancestor, who was Ham. Okay, in the process, so like I said, part of that whole Great Awakening missionary thing, Charles Colfax Jones in his book, the missionizing and the making of a slave, when you look at things like that, which I have that book in there, Charles Colfax Jones, when you look at manuscripts like there, and there are thousands, brothers and sisters, that you could actually get your hands on. Part of the concept was to make the black African feel that there was a neutrality when it came to how God viewed people. And that, here we go, you get that saying, there's no respecter, God is no respecter of persons. Okay? Came out of that particular era in convincing the slave that the church should be colorblind, or he should be colorblind. Therefore, if he can't see the color that's actually oppressing him, then, and the God of the person that's oppressing him would still be a holy and a sanctified type of entity.
Okay.
You understand
Yes.
that?
Okay.
So, when a person say, God doesn't see color, I already gave you scriptures to really dispute that and to show you that that is not correct. God created you specifically, and if he created you in his image and you are black, God did not make a mistake. If you are yellow, Asian, God did not make a mistake. If you are European, what we would call white, God did not make a mistake. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So when you look at Genesis 10, that's why you have the nations. You have the Goim. The Goim are the Gentile nations. The word Goim mean many nations, or the nations of the Gentiles. You have the nations that we would call the Hebraic nations, which are your Hamitic and Shemitic line, which are people of color, identification based on landmass, meaning the location. The Greek word iotop or iotopus, where we get our English word Ethiopia from, actually simply means black face or land of the burnt skin. When the Greeks, Alexander enters into Egypt, he identifies the people based on them having burnt skin or black skin. The Hebraic lineage, as it relates to our brothers and sisters that we refer to as the Ayatots or the Ethiopians, their Phalashim lineage, which is your Hebraic or what we would know as the Jewish lineage, all of those are blacks. Your Nubians also were part of that lineage, okay, in northern Africa. Okay, when you come down to Western Africa, you see your Igbo, you see your Yorubian, you see your, what we know now, the Nigerian part of the Nigerian is the Igbo, the Yorubian tribes. Okay, you continue to go into West Africa, you go east and you see your Kenyan people. Okay, you see your Kenyan tribes. All of these, when we go south, we see the Limba tribe, you see the Maasai tribe, you see the South African people. You continue to go back west, you see Ghanaians, the Ashanti people.
Yes.
Okay, I can go on and on,
Yes.
brothers and sisters. But the fact is that we need to have some sense of,
Who we are.
yes, identity.
Yes.
And not only that, we should not be ashamed to acknowledge that the God that we serve is concerned about who we are as black people, and that the church is the black church. We should not be ashamed to say that. Our European brothers are not ashamed to call their church a white church. Our Asian brothers are not ashamed to call their church an Asian church. They're not ashamed to put up their depiction of a European or white deity that they call God. The Asians are not ashamed to put up an Asian Jesus if they follow Christianity. We are the only people that have been made to feel ashamed.
That's right.
If we identify our God as a black God.
Yes.
Well,
Why is that?
go again in Revelations. The identity of Jesus as one having feet of brass and woolly hair is a depiction of a black God. In the Song of Solomon, Solomon says, I am black and I'm beautiful. I did a sermon, I call it Black and Beautiful. Okay? Listen, when you look through the Bible, I've said this in a lecture. I do a lecture called Black to the Bible. Black to the Bible. Okay? Everywhere you see one of those Hamitic lines, so when I say Hamitic, anywhere you see an ites on the end, 95% that is African lineage. Jebusite, Hamite, Canaanite, Hittite, Midianite. Okay? So whenever you start reading that was a simple way that I would teach that.
Yes.
So that people will understand and begin to identify people of color in the Bible. Now, I went into greater detail as I began to break down the migrational patterns of those particular people's groups, okay, and what part of Africa they actually were actually located in and occupied. Okay, so that's a deeper study as it relates to that. But brothers and sisters, we should never be ashamed to identify ourselves as black people. One reason that a lot of people are not identifying with the secular church today and what we know as Christianity, one reason that our young people do not feel like they fit in is because culturally they're trying to find out who they are. In the church is actually in direct contradiction of who they're trying to discover as it relates to their identity in being black and discovering their heritage and their culture, when they go in the church is contrary to that and say, no, you don't have to focus on color. If you're a Christian, you just, you come on in, you just be spiritual, you just need to be saved. We all the same in Christ. And you actually, and see, that is what happened when it comes to the indoctrination of white supremacy in theology. The white theologian taught that in what we know as the Great Awakening or the missionizing of the slaves on plantations. Part of their job was to make the slave feel inferior, to keep the slave with an inferior mindset, and specifically an inferior mindset as it related to their gods. Now, here's the unique thing. Before the Europeans ever discovered what we call Christianity, it was already in Africa. Christianity was in Africa prior to it hitting Europe at least 2,200 years.
Yes.
At least. So we could talk about the Ethiopian Coptic writings. We could talk about the dogmatic texts, okay, out of Egypt. So all of these things, we have to, I think as black people, understand the significance of why some things were done and why now is not accepted as it relates to our people really trusting, what we call, Christianity. When there's no sure definition that identifies who they are with this particular faith, then they feel disconnected. Yes. You understand what I'm saying? So why should our children participate in something that they feel does not acknowledge them in their own identity, but yet everybody else sitting in the place can have their identity acknowledged by the same word that you're telling them to believe, but yet you also at the same token telling them with the same word, do not focus on color, but yet you have a European picture of a Messiah hanging up, but yet tell them, do not focus on color. Something's wrong with it. It's a twisted mindset, but it shows you how conditioned we are when it comes to Western theology. Okay? So, any questions on that? Any comments? You need to leave your phone alone because you're disconnected. You need to be connected. Okay?
I was trying to see if that was the
don't
person
worry about that.
On.
If you're the person, okay.
We can't see.
Yes, okay. Okay. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Let it be okay. Okay. We'll catch them next time.
All right.
Okay. So that brothers and sisters, that's like I said, that's one thing that we have to look at. We have to start identifying those things. Now, when you study the history of the church, you're going to find out, and if you study specifically the African American church, you'll find out some unique things as it relates to the formation of African American churches prior to, the whole Great Awakening piece. Okay. So I'm gonna stop there. Do you have any questions there?
Yes. Brian, it takes a lot, especially when it's not being, our African history is no longer being taught in school, or is not being taught in school. It hasn't really been taught in the public school system, where people can't understand that and grasp that overnight. You've done years and years of studying in that, and you and I have been together 6 years, and I'm still trying to understand a part of it, but a lot of it. But what I do know, if there was some way that we can help our people to understand that we were the first. Mm-hmm. We were the first people here on earth. I'm not talking about just in America. I'm talking about here. Mm-hmm. And that's been proven. Okay? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Archaeologists are digging up bones and artifacts of thousands and millions and millions and millions of years ago, where they know that we were the first people here. Mm-hmm. And to expect people to understand that this is your legacy, this is your history, you were here first, then if we were the first ones here, why are we looked upon as being the last?
Well, for two reasons. There's a great book, and I like to give you resources. There's a great book written by Drusilla Danji called The Wonderful Ethiopians. Brothers and sisters, if you get an opportunity, get that book. She has a little chapter in that book where she talks about when Ethiopia ruled the world. Okay? Because our history is not taught in the schools, because they focus on two periods in the school: slavery and the civil rights movement. And they call that African history. That's not African history. That's modern day history. Okay. Drusilla Danji talks about all nations paid homage at one time to the Nubians, Ethiopians. Okay. In that region, they existed together. Even there are some historians that say they may possibly relate to the same people. But anyway, the Ethiopians, in that chapter where she talks about when Ethiopia ruled the world, and all in the world came and sought wisdom, those lands in what we know now as the Arab Peninsula, Asia Minor, Asia, those areas, all came to seek the wisdom. Not only that, they sought the spirituality of those people. So when you go from being reverenced by all nations from a standpoint of technology, from a standpoint of not only technology but wealth, you were the wealthiest of all nations. When you go from being the most spiritual and wisest of all nations to those same people that came and honored, paid homage, now coming back and trying to strip your wealth and to strip you of your technology, learn all they can, and then use it for their benefit. They have to minimize your significance in order to elevate themselves. Okay? So, my brothers and sisters, that's not a mystery anymore. Anytime someone wants to elevate themselves over you, they have to minimize your accomplishments, your significance, as it relates to whatever it is that they're trying to take away from you or make it seem like is insignificant as it relates to you. Okay? They have to somehow cast dispersions upon you. And that is what we see throughout our history. It's ironic. We talk about the Moors in Spain and how they not only revolutionized but industrialized Europe And even to this day, you know, Europe would not be what it is if it was not for those Africans that went over there that we call Moors. And the word Moor simply means blackface as well. When you go back to the root of the word, it comes from the word mur, means black one. Okay? So we have to begin to understand what we're dealing with when it comes to who we are, our spiritual heritage, be it Christianity, whatever you choose to call yourself, that is fine. You know, whatever you choose to affiliate yourself with from a religious practice, that is on you. I don't get into the who is right, who is wrong. See, what we also fail to understand is part of the missionary job was to keep Africans divided. Okay? As it relates to what they believed in practice concerning what they were being taught, as opposed to what they were being taught by the missionaries. There had to be a division established. So now you've got the African that says, no, we want to hold on to our traditions that we know and not practice this. And then you got one group on the plantation saying, no, we need to be obedient to what the missionary and master wants us to do. So now you got a divide based on what Africans say concerning their traditional belief system, as opposed to what the missionary was teaching that was different from their belief system. Now you got a divide on the plantation. Okay, so you even got a severance there when it comes to how they view God, how they view spirituality, how they view religion. And spirituality, and that we said that in the last show, spirituality and religion are not the same, right? Okay, so but now you got a divide. Now here's interesting fact. I want my brothers and sisters to go look this up. In 1758, the first known church that was established in America was called the African Baptist or the Bluestone Church. Okay? It was founded by Africans on the William Byrd Plantation, brothers and sisters. Go look that up.
That's in Virginia, isn't it?
Located in Virginia. You are exactly right. The Africans on the plantation said that they wanted to keep their own spiritual rituals in place. Guess what part of their spiritual rituals was?
What was it?
Water ritual. Guess what the water ritual was?
Baptism.
It was baptism. Now, listen, the Africans on the William Byrd Plantation was asked, where did you learn that from? When the missionary came to their plantation. The Africans on that plantation, they did not have a Bible. Keep this in mind now at this time. They said this was our water ritual that we performed when we were in our own land.
All right.
Listen, there's a good book called The Narratives of the Interesting Narrative of Olada Ekwunonu. Get that book. It is his personal autobiography. This was written by his own hand. When he was captured and taken on the slave ship, he was asked by the slave master, by the ship captain, on this particular vessel, where did he learn certain practices from as it relates to circumcision, as it relates to water baptism? There were rituals relating to 12 stones. He told the captain, those are customs that we practice in my country.
Wow. Wow.
Prior to Olada Ekwinanu being captured and taken as a slave, he remembered the spiritual rituals that they practiced. He said later on, when he learned how to, and he became very educated, very fluent, okay, he said in his own writings that the Bible that the white man had was simply a manuscript of his people's spiritual practices that were not written, that they were doing thousands of years before the Bible ever, or before he ever read a Bible, and before the Bible was ever written. Okay? So, very interesting.
Yes.
Okay? So, can we bring somebody on, or how do we do that? Can you see her?
No, she says she's here. She's on.
How can she come on?
Scroll down and hit you.
Oh, good. Brothers and sisters, we all do. We got to get a producer.
You just gotta
okay, so let me scroll down
and share it.
Okay, she's directed me on how to do this. So let's see here.
There you are. Where it says share, bring the person on screen.
Where it is? Where is it?
At the bottom. I don't know where it is.
Okay, she says she's here.
Go back up.
Oh, maybe here we go. Let's see here. View one, view cover. Okay, so I am not certain on, and I'm hoping that the camera is not
ask to
moving.
come on.
Yeah.
Can she ask to be invited?
I don't know, man. Maybe it's the ad. Here we go. I don't know.
No.
Okay, well, we have a good friend on that is also, at this time, she is a Bible student, and I don't know if she is listening to us right now, but can you ask to come on?
I'm trying to see. I'm asking her now.
Okay. But anyway, brothers and sisters, like I said, very interesting. All of this research you could do for yourself. I don't have to go through a lot of the, from a standpoint of a lot of the detail, but just giving you information that you can actually go and you can do the research and kind of just find out yourself. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, okay.
She didn't see it.
Okay.
Bring her in.
Yeah. So we need to do it on the other thing next time. We may not need to do it on this because it shows it on the other.
Yes, it does.
So we apologize for that. So but anyway,
keep going, baby.
Okay. But anyway, brothers and sisters. But like I said, that's one thing, so we've got to get back to making sure that when we talk about, the black church, when we talk about, people leaving the black church, people coming in, people not feeling like they're welcome, we've got to create an atmosphere. Yes, I personally am a big proponent of if we can have a integrated church that most looks like the Church of Acts, that would be wonderful.
Yes.
Okay.
Beautiful.
It would be a beautiful thing. And you do have a lot of churches that are really, they flourish in that arena. They're very diverse. They're fully integrated. And they're doing some wonderful things in the community. Okay? If you do not have the capacity to, as a communal church, to operate in that facet. In a lot of churches in the South, we still have to acknowledge this. It's still the most segregated place in the South.
Yes.
Is on a Sunday morning,
Yes.
and that's in our church buildings.
Exactly.
Okay, we can't stick our heads in the sand and say that that's not so. In the South, that's still the case. Okay, you're still going to have black and white churches. If that is the case, then focus on your people. Don't be ashamed. You don't have to have an integrated ministry to still be
effective.
That's right, and to still be godly, to
Right.
still be righteous, to still be, you understand what I'm saying? What we have to do is focus, give more attention. See, love still starts at home,
And
spreads
spreads
abroad.
abroad.
We've got it twisted.
But Brian,
Because-
we still are not helping people to understand why the fallout. What is going on? Why are especially your young people, why are we not pulling the youth?
The church doesn't look like young people anymore. That's one thing. Okay, so what do I mean when I say young people? I believe, and I may be wrong, because this is my opinion. Okay, but I believe that the church has to offer young people
Okay. Now we're getting somewhere.
a way to connect to this gospel that is preached every Sunday of the year. Okay? If they do not feel connected to that gospel, they are not going to be participants. Let me share this with you. And this is something that I really believe is what the black church, okay?
Okay.
Meaning that the church that is in a 95%
Black
city,
or
black
town.
community,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
the black church is focused so much on entertainment and not addressing the issues. I said this last time.
Yes, you do.
And not
Yes, you do.
addressing
Yes.
the issues of what young people deal with every
Every
day.
day.
And not just young people, what our middle class and what our elders are dealing with now. We have become disconnected from middle age. And yes, middle age and our elders, we have become disconnected. The church has become disconnected from what they're dealing with on a everyday basis. Do not tell me you're going to pray for me when I am hungry. Jesus didn't pray for the hungry. He went out and fed the hungry. I have a problem. The woman that had a medical problem.
The issue of blood.
You understand what
Yes.
I'm saying? Jesus dealt with that.
Yes.
Okay.
And you have some churches now that are doing that. They're feeding. They're bringing in mobile medical units.
Yes,
to
but
help.
you cannot do it in sporadic and do it in grant style, once every 3 months. That doesn't work. Okay,
You have a lot of churches that do offer things for the youth, but if you're not there, you can't. If they're not coming, they're not going to receive anything. You gotta get them in there.
That's the problem. So, what is it? Boots on the ground. How do you reach them? Facebook, whatever.
Yes.
Instagram, Twitter, whatever the young person is doing now. Like we said last week also,
I think a
that
lot
those
of
social
people,
venues,
yes.
and
lot of
we're beyond the pandemic now.
Yes.
So that's not the problem anymore.
But Brian, a lot of pastors, I see it on Facebook all the time because I don't go and visit all these different churches, but I see it because a lot of them have, you can replay it.
Well, that's fine.
They are still teaching the same messages that they did 20, 30 years ago. And people are saying, the elders are saying, well, if it worked for me, it'll work for them.
It doesn't
it doesn't work like that.
No,
we are in a new era.
Listen, what I call those are dead sermons.
Okay.
If you heard it once, you've heard it 1,000 times. They're dead sermons. Like I said, the pulpit has become a place of entertainment. and it is a sad day, okay? I still say that when churches become social clubs as well, that's not healthy, okay? When I know I'm going to go, the network is good, okay? Don't get me wrong. The network is good. We need each other. When two or three are gathered, he's in the midst. We done heard it all.
Yes.
Okay? Forsake not the gathering in the assembly of yourself. Like we done heard it all. We can quote the scriptures back and forth. But to network. So when you are not dealing with the origin of those words,
okay,
and don't understand the origin of those words, they go beyond our thinking as it relates to Western theology. See, when you talk about forsaking not the gathering of yourselves and the assembling of yourselves and the two or three again,
yes,
we're talking about the Ubuntu concept out of our traditions. So when you see that in scripture, when you go back and you look at the Hebraic, when you look at the Greek, that was an interpretation of what, when we look at the New Testament, of the Latin, you understand what I'm saying? So when we talk about those particular words, they mean more than just coming to church together. Okay? It means consistently having fellowship, not just one day a week. It means connecting as a community to where we know what each other is dealing with, and we're able as a whole group to come to the aid of our brothers and sisters alike that need our help. We don't come as one individual trying to help.
Right.
We come as a whole group
yes,
and say, okay, brother, what do you need? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That is the gathering and the assembling. Forsake not the gathering and the assembling. That is what that is relating to. Now, I understand modern day context. When we look at it, people have jobs. Some sisters working 2 and 3 jobs,
yes,
taking care of babies
yes,
by themselves because there's no brother in the home. You understand what I'm saying? Then you have other dynamics socially that we're dealing with. You have people that are strung out on drugs.
yes,
You have people that are addicted to alcohol.
yes.
We have all type of dilemmas,
Yes.
okay, that we're having to deal with. But the best way to deal with it is as a collective group
Right. Yes.
that is not ashamed to make known what it is socially, or either spiritually, or either financially, the situation that is at hand. Once we do that, see, this is elders can come together and says, what are the best solutions for Sister Jones down the street, or for Brother Johnson across town? Okay, this is what they're dealing with. And you got the whole community involved. You're not just one person. So everybody helping minimizes
the impact.
the
on one
impact
on one
being
person.
on one individual. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So now, the whole concept of a benevolent fund in the church was designed to deal with issues of those that were members of the church. That's another thing we need to get rid of, a whole membership concept. That it was not, you do not see that, it's not scriptural. Okay? That is a concept based on Western theology.
Wow.
To continue to separate and divide. Okay? Divisions. A house divided against
itself
it cannot stand. Okay? So we see all of these barriers set in place to keep us from actually fulfilling what the work of the gospel really says we should be doing and how the work of the gospel was intended to function as it relates to a group, okay, that now is called the church. You understand what I'm saying? So, okay, so what did Lisa say?
Jeez.
A lot of them do offer things for the young adults, but if you're not there, you can't receive anything if the cross isn't enough and you really truly understand the cross. I think that's enough. We also have to bend our will to God's will. He doesn't dictate to our wants and needs. The big message is whosoever will, let them come. That's what Lisa, and she's a Bible student.
She's a Bible student.
So,
yes.
And we appreciate her comments on that as well. So, but I'm gonna leave it at that because I'm getting kind of deep into the, I want to go deeper as far as the helping our people to understand. So when the church was established, what we know as the church, okay, amongst ourselves.
But
okay?
I came from a background where there was a need, you could go in private to the selected body of church, which would be the deacons or the deaconess, and state what your need was. That need, however they handled that, because I was at one time a part of that committee, whatever that need was, we came together as a church and we took it to the board, the pastor, the board, and that need was met for that individual family or that person, such as the power bill needing to be paid, or their children were getting ready to go off to college and they needed things, or their mortgage was behind. We did that. So I don't know how that is. I'm sure there are churches out there that still do that, but what I'm seeing now is people struggling. And they're not going to the church because they feel like they haven't seen enough of exemplary service as far as the lives of the people at the head of the church living before the community to invite them or to make them feel welcome enough to come into the church.
Church government is essential, okay, when it comes to order. That's what you're expressing. Okay? That's what you're expressing. You're expressing how the church government works in order to meet the need of, be it one individual that may be suffering or may have had, been behind on a power bill or a mortgage or whatever. And the church that you were a part of at that particular time, this is how they handled it. So they had a specific order as it relates to their church governance. Yes. So church government is important. How church is structured as it relates to whatever particular faith it is important on being able to handle certain needs of their membership. Okay? So, now I said that to simply say this. I still go back to the principle of, if you can connect all of those branches together, you have a greater effect, a larger effect with minimal impact to the overall body if it is done correctly.
Okay? I agree.
100%. There's no pastor that will argue against that. Okay? Now, what you have in a lot of churches is you have the misuse of funding. So benevolent funds, building funds, all of these different accounts set up and different funds set up, general fund, okay? You have all these things established, but yet you have a community that's falling apart, and yet the church is continuing to rise. There's something diametrically wrong
yes.
with that, okay? And you cannot tell me you could put a church in the heart of the ghetto and it's a $1.2 million building, and you cannot establish affordable housing for the people, that $1.2 million or $2.2 million building that you
Wow.
just erected. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it is something that, to me, and that, like I said, this is my opinion, that doesn't equate to doing the mission of and the work of God.
Yes.
Okay? That is not how, when you look at Jesus in the Bible, it's not how he operated. You understand? Told the rich man, go and sell everything that you have. Come follow me. The rich man went away sad. He went into the temple, turned over the money changer's table. So there was a connection that the Jesus of the Bible had with those people that nobody else wanted to deal with. And it was a special relationship. So I believe that if we are, supposedly the body of Christ, we're now the arms, the legs, the mouth, the eyes of the Savior, then something, if the Spirit of Christ
Yes.
dwells in us,
Yes.
should be also leading us to operate and to function and to do the same thing. See, there are a lot of people go to big churches that are fantastic ministries and they give their tithes and offerings and they say, well, I'm a part and this is what my church is doing and this is what I do. And that's wonderful. But at some point, it's got to move beyond that because you're still only affecting a few in the overall scheme of things. See, the whole concept, when you have ministries that go out and they send buses to projects, they pick up the little kids on Sundays, they bring them in, they educate them, all you're doing is perpetuating the same missionizing that was done as it relates to the slaves in the missionaries that came on the plantation. You're doing it's the same exact thing, just in a different context. Now it's in a modern day context. But it's no different.
But at least they're
Okay.
coming in. You're going to reach
Yeah,
some.
you bring them in and you take them back to the ghetto. You take them back to the same condition. You take them back to the same problems. Take them back to the same crack out mama. You take them back to the same drunkard daddy. You take them back to maybe the same abusive sexually uncle. So, see, like I said, something's missing. And I think until people feel like they are connected and their issues are really at the forefront, you understand what I'm saying? Passing out hot dogs and hamburgers and feeding people on, every now and then, it has its merits. Having health fairs every now and then, it has its merits. But see, we are so controlled by governmental institutions that the church have now began to shadow what Christ ostracized the most. And that was the hierarchical government that was in place at that particular time, telling everybody that you have to act, believe, and all say the same thing, do the same thing, act the same way as it relates to what we put in place to govern you as the Word. And the governmental authority of that day that controlled the people, the religious zealots, what the Bible refers to as Pharisees, scribes, Sadducees, okay, they were in place as servants of the hierarchical imperial government of that time, at that time, which was Rome. Okay. Now, like I said, I could go into the church history and we could do a whole series on that. But the church has become a institution that does not operate as a spiritual organism anymore. It operates as an institution.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Inviting this pastor or inviting this group because they've got grant money, so they got to get rid of it. They want to come in and help on a particular weekend, or these are great group of people. They want to do this, they want to do that, and then that's the only time you're actually doing anything. But are you really helping the community? No, because the rest of the weeks and months that go by, you're absent. You're not talking about the issues that affect them. You're not talking about how their condition that they're living in affects them. You're not talking about what their children having to go through. You understand what I'm saying? The church has become disconnected, some churches, from that, especially in black communities and black cities. We have become an institution that is just like a prison. Okay? And people don't want to go to prison. They want to be free. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there again, that's why the institution of the church is not drawing the group that we're talking about.
Yes, I get it.
Okay? So we'll leave it
Yes.
at that. We're at an hour and 5 minutes.
Yes.
Anyway,
Thank
I
you
can go
all
on
for
and on.
joining us tonight.
Thank you for your comments, Lisa.
Lisa,
and we do apologize.
Yes. And then we do want to thank our YouTube followers, our
Thank you,
Facebook
YouTube,
followers,
and all the beautiful comments.
and YouTube. We really appreciate you guys. We've reached right at 4,000 views, so we're thankful for that. So thank you for joining us tonight. Also, if you go back and listen to this show, please hashtag replay, so we'll know that you did come back and watch.
Yes.
So we appreciate you guys.
And if you all have a question that you all would like for me to address. So like I said, I'm not new at this. I've been doing this a long time. I'm very grateful for the training. I'm very grateful for the education.
And your studies, yes. Awesome.
But more grateful for my spiritual time
Yes.
that I spend, with God. So anything that you all would like for us to discuss on this venue, I'm doing this because of your comments and questions.
Exactly.
And again, we appreciate you, and we hope you keep commenting and like the show as we continue to bring information to you that hopefully will be helpful to you. I wanted, before we leave, let me share this book with you. Stony, the Road We Trod by Dr. Kane Hope Felder, African American Biblical Interpretation. If you don't have this, please add it to your library. Please add it to your library. And I'll be giving you many sources that you can use for those that want to take a deeper dive and do some studying. Right?